Hi everyone, I'm Serena Hillman and I'll be presenting the case study, The Blue Framework. In this talk, we describe the process we went through and lessons learned when developing an in-product feedback system. This was specifically for a group of products within Microsoft's Azure data organization. So before we jump into the process and details of our framework, I just want to call out the specific contributions this work offers. So unlike current metric frameworks that are out there, ours brings together a variety of frameworks and focuses on both what UX metrics to capture and how to capture them. It also provides clear actions a practitioner can take to help create custom UX health metrics. It also provides guiding principles around the relationship between business and UX metrics. And finally, it includes a focus on real-world collaboration, socialization, and the need to embed this work into the all-up UX research process. So the story begins on a regular rainy winter day in Seattle. Our boss's boss reached out to me and a colleague and asked about a problem related to our current in-product feedback system. The problem was it was inconsistent, lacked rigor, often interrupted our users, and as we started to attend meetings related to the data, we quickly realized that it wasn't resulting in any action or change. So we started down the path of fixing these issues. And to give you a high-level view of what we did and what we'll be reviewing in this talk, here's a whimsical map of the journey we took. So after the discussion with our boss, we then did an internal and external review of secondary literature. And then based on those findings, we defined UX outcomes and mapped these outcomes to metrics. And then we worked closely with the designers to create the designs and get some user feedback. And finally, we spent months socializing the design and finally getting it implemented into product. After we talk a bit about the journey, we'll present some guidelines. These are lessons learned and for other practitioners out there to follow. We dubbed these blue, and the little picture here of the donkey, we like to think that the blue framework can be like a pack animal that helps you along the way of your journey. So let's dive into these steps further. Our review of secondary literature from internal and external sources really focused on two fundamental questions: what should we measure and how do we measure it? Because of this, we ended up reviewing lots of frameworks within the space, the most notable being HATS, HEART, Outcomes over Outputs, and the OKR framework. We also identified different types of in-product feedback mechanisms. First, the system-initiated mechanism, which relies on sample rules to gather feedback. The second being behavior, where a user will perform a behavior and then be intercepted to ask for feedback on that behavior. The third type of mechanism was identified as user-initiated. Here, the user always has a persistent way to provide feedback. So from these learnings, we move on to the valley of measurement. Here, we're looking to identify UX outcomes and map these to metrics. So to do this, we engaged with our UX design and research team as the experts of our users. We asked them to fill out a survey. The survey had kind of three main questions. The questions were, if we do a fantastic job with our core value in the product, how does this improve our user's life? What would be the key moment in our user's experience where they achieve this in your product? And three, are there problems our users regularly encounter that impact their ability to achieve this key moment in your product? And so these three questions map back to Jared Spool's success metrics, progress metrics, and problem value metrics. So we ended up collecting a total of 15 responses that represents about 75% of our research and design team. And the answers really spanned the 6 products we were looking for. We ended up finding that our UX outcomes really focused on 3 main things: simplification of the complex, completing core tasks efficiently, and improvement of daily work routines. So we mapped these outcomes to usefulness, ease of use, efficiency, and user value, and then adapted existing metrics to measure them. And so for the sake of time, we'll just quickly touch on the river of feedback. Again, for more information, please check out the full paper. So in this stop, we spent some time learning about users' impressions of feedback, how they prefer to give feedback, and general ideas around the feedback designs we were presenting. These findings didn't establish any design principles per se, but they just rather highlight the importance of quick user studies to really optimize the experience. So the main kind of takeaway here is get feedback on your feedback. And then finally, our journey ends at the top of socialization and implementation mountain. As you can see from these numbers, it was amazing the amount of socialization that was required to get the concept to launch and really have people understand the new mechanisms we were using and the rationale behind the metrics we selected. And so now here we are at the end of our journey. And so now let's discuss the Blue Framework and the guidelines within it. So first up, B, build your metrics. As most of the past research has indicated, we really want to focus here on outcomes versus output. Also, we want to ground our metrics on company objectives and make sure they're aligned. And finally, that we're focusing on consistency of application. That means scale and how we capture versus long debates about what is the right metric. Next is L for leverage proven mechanisms. We recommend starting with the HATS framework as a guide for mechanism behavior, sampling, and getting to that task level feedback. However, cadence and sampling choices can be impacted by external sources, so adapting these to your needs might be necessary. U for unlock the results. This pillar speaks to making the data accessible to our stakeholders, not only contributing to opportunities to tell our user stories more, but also allows for self-service on the data and continued engagement. Ultimately, this supports a more data-driven culture. E, embed in practice. Here the focus is on embedding the UX health metrics into your overall UX research process. This pillar is also about including a focus on socialization, because the story behind these data points is important. Socialization brings transparency and inclusion, showing you how we can prioritize the user within these metrics, and tracking their impact across the entire UX research process is a compelling story to tell. Thank you for listening to the walkthrough of our case study. To recap, we feel that our case study contributes an end-to-end view on how to design in-product feedback for large-scale applications, specifically spanning beyond metric capture to implementation and value realization. Please feel free to reach out to any of us with any questions or comments. Thank you.